Recording, it says recording in progress. Okay, so this is the third star week. Last week was rough. I think because the story was so long and there was so much to it, it was really hard to pick them out. So if you made a mistake with that, good, because then you won't make it when it counts, right? So that was good. This week, the story is one page. And that can be hard too, because sometimes there's not enough. This is probably more like what you're going to see. So we're going to talk about just a theme today. And the message here the author had about this story was, we've got a problem with jealousy and envy in this story. Is that a pretty common emotion? Oh, yeah. So jealousy is this unhappy or angry feeling, wanting what someone else has. I'm pretty sure, because you have an older sibling, that maybe you've been jealous of older siblings, some privilege that maybe she's gotten, or I don't know, a gift that she's received that you haven't. So very, very normal with siblings to feel that. Do you ever feel that with your friends?
Yeah,
Do you think your parents feel that emotion, jealousy?
sometimes.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of a human flaw, actually. Envy is a painful or resentful awareness of an advantage enjoyed by another, joined with the desire to possess the same advantage. So I like to look at jealousy as kind of mild, like I want what someone else has. And I feel like envy is a darker emotion. It's more, you're more likely to act on envy. Does that make sense? Jealousy feels like kind of natural. Okay, I get it. I'm jealous of my older sister. Okay, but you know what? She's older than me, so be it. When you try to take something and steal something that your sister got that you didn't and hide it, that's acting on it. Does that make sense? So we're going to have a story here. Really, just very, very basic story. And the conflict is jealousy. The conflict is we have two towns. And what's really funny about this story, the setting is in Italy. And there's a very famous leaning tower. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Right? The Leaning Tower of Pisa. So I find this is kind of a short version of that. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so I'm going to read it. Do you have it in front of you? The Two Towers? Okay. The Two Towers by Pedro Pablo Sacristain. A long time ago, in an Italian city, they built a beautiful tower, which was admired by everyone passing through. A little further down the road, in a neighboring city, they had built a tower of similar beauty. The two towers were equally well known. The people of the second city, envious and filled with pride, planned to destroy the neighboring tower so it wouldn't take attention away from their own. One dark night, they came to the tower with picks and shovels and began to quietly undermine its foundations. The next morning, the tower was leaning slightly, but nobody seemed to notice. The same happened for the following few days until a little girl who was passing by pointed up at the tower and said, "I think that tower's going to fall down." And everyone around looked closely and could see that she was right. Nervousness spread through the city. They tried no end of solutions to try to straighten the tower, but the days passed and nothing seemed to work. That was until one day when the same little girl was walking by again, and she leant her arm on the side of the tower to rest. She felt the tower trembling slightly amid the sound of creaking and groaning. When she took her hand off it, the movement and the noises stopped. And when she put it back on, the same happened. The girl spent a while doing this until she was completely certain of what she had discovered. The tower is ticklish. She ran to get some flowers and plants, and she planted them right next to the tower. Now, if the tower leant over any further, it would be tickled by the petals and leaves of those plants. Being a ticklish tower, it would then have to return back to where it had been. In this way, the girl managed to make sure that the tower didn't collapse, but still, it kept leaning a little. The fact that it was leaning made it even more famous, and this taught a fine lesson to the envious people of the neighboring city. Being jealous types, they tried to copy the lean of the first tower, but they couldn't do it And the tower ended up collapsing, leaving the city not only without a tower, but also without a city hall. So interesting here. We have in your story elements, we have a little girl who basically has a nonsensical solution. Did her planting flowers and plants have anything to do with that tower? No, it's just kind of funny bit of humor there. So we have townspeople from an Italian city, and then we have townspeople from a neighboring city. And the problem is, after a beautiful tower is built in the Italian city, the neighboring city builds an equally magnificent structure with the intent to oppress. Okay, here was their problem. They built a copy of the tower, right? Is copying a form of flattery? Oh yeah, kids do that all the time, right? Oh, I like her shoes. I'm going to go buy them. Or I like those Crocs. I'm going to get that. Or, look at how we copy each other, right? With products, with what we buy. So yeah, I think it's okay to copy, if you know that it's a copy. The two towers, both well known, obviously they're similar, but when the neighboring people attempt to sabotage the first tower to make it lean, they're taught a lesson. I love that. The context clues show dirt and grass around the tower. So I don't know if it's present day. It could be, I'm guessing, based on, the history of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, that this is probably early 1900s. The neighboring townspeople tried to make the tower fall because their envy caused them to lose sight of the wonderful tower they already had. Really fascinating ending here. They're so jealous now of the lean that they try to copy the lean. And of course, they end up causing their entire tower to fall down. So I think he's saying here, be careful about wanting what others have, because, if you allow envy, to kind of penetrate your actions or guide your actions, you may end up causing your own destruction or demise. I think that's a pretty good lesson, don't you, for all of us? Envious people, Viomini, tend to feel hostile, resentful, angry, and irritable. So it's really interesting. On my wall here, I have the 7 deadly sins, and we've talked about this before because it really came up with mythology, with Greek and Roman mythology. And in folklore and in religion, these are the actions that are fatal to one's moral and spiritual progress. So people are human, we're flawed, and yes, we feel jealousy naturally. But when envy, kind of darkens our heart, mind, and our spirit, that's when we make these decisions like in the story. So if you kind of want to see my board here, I have the 7 deadly sins here in order of importance. So you'll notice pride is number 1, and that's just a superiority to others. And of course, that's responsible for the downfall of man. And number 2 is envy, the desire for others' traits, status, abilities, or situation. Okay, so we know, and the 7 deadly sins is just a connection here. It's not like vital to the story or anything. But what I want you to know is when we choose those actions, when we become puffed with pride or envious, this really hurts ourselves. We become self-destructive. What do you think the opposite of pride is? If feeling superior is what pride is, what would be the opposite?
Feeling not superior.
Humble, being humble. Okay, so what do you think the opposite of envy is? Well, let me give you a hint. What do you think the neighboring city should have felt about the tower they had?
Grateful.
Bingo. If we are grateful for what we have, yeah, I'd like that bigger house like my friend has. I'd like to have that Tesla like my friends have. You know what? My house is okay. My Nissan is okay. I would like a Tesla, but I'm not going to let it guide my whole thinking pattern. I'm going to be content and happy with what I have and what I can afford. And that's really going to allow you to avoid, anger and resentment, hostility. And I think we have enough of that right now, don't you? So envy is an emotion really mostly unconscious, but it can come from being too focused on what others have, their successes, and wanting to bring them down because of it. And that's exactly what happens in the story. If you are a receiver of an envy attack, you'll pretty much feel really bad about yourself, but without knowing why. Interestingly enough, I've heard different things about comparing jealousy to envy, but I think envy, it takes a dark turn. It's more sinister. That's kind of how I look at it. Okay, so a couple things I want you to do. Go to the guided questions. Okay. And I intentionally tried to trick you. Okay. What was the reason the neighboring city wanted to destroy the original tower from the Italian city? The neighboring tower wanted their tower to be more highly regarded. They did not think the original tower was as beautiful as theirs. The neighboring town thought the original tower took too much attention away from their duplicated tower. Because they were jealous, they plotted to destroy the tower. What was the reason? What letter answers the reason? D. They were jealous. They were jealous. That's the reason they did it. So make sure you're looking carefully at what they're asking. How did the neighboring town cause the original tower to lean? Now, this has been subject of debate, how you interpret the story. They came one night and dug trenches around the tower. They snuck in several nights and took shovels and picks to remove bricks from the tower. They crept in sneakily for a few nights, using a pick and shovel to loosen the foundation. Each night after they dug around the tower, they pushed into it until lean. So it can only be A or C. So I want you to go back in the story and tell me what you think the answer is. Was it one night? So if you look in the story, it says, one dark night, they came to the tower with picks and shovels and began to quietly undermine its foundation. The next morning, the tower was leaning slightly, but nobody seemed to notice. Now listen to the next part. The same happened for the following few days. What's the answer?
C.
Correct. I tripped up a lot of people on that one. Why did no one in the town notice the tower was leaning except the young girl? So this is just kind of inferencing. The townspeople were likely too busy to pay attention to their surroundings. The little girl was probably more observant than the adults. The lean of the tower was a gradual change. So the townspeople did not notice it until it became more obvious. D, all of the above. What do you think it is? D? Is that what you said? Like D. Like, is that a line? D. Not C, D, correct? That is correct. What is a likely explanation for why the tower did not fall? The flower and plants the little girl planted next to the tower really did cause it to lean the other way. No, that's not the answer. The townspeople in the other town stopped coming out at night to sabotage the tower, fearing they would be caught. The townspeople from the other town stopped coming to the original tower because they were trying to copy the lean on their tower. The flowers and plants the little girl planted meant more dirt created a stronger foundation, so the tower stopped leaning. Tricky one. What do you think?
I think it's A.
Well, let's go back and look. Whoa, okay. The fact that it was leaning made it more famous. This taught a fine lesson. Being jealous types, they tried to copy the lean. So the copying of the lean wasn't until the end. So what's the answer? B. Yeah. Once it was leaning, they weren't coming back, Viomini. I mean, come on, they knew. I'm out. What message do you think the author was trying to send when he wrote this story? Do not copy others, instead create your own original tower structure. Envy will cause people to act in immoral ways, but it will come back to haunt them. There it is, right there. There's the message. I'm not even going to go any further. Okay. So I did list the 7 deadly sins for you. And here's what it says. People have always been immoral, shiftless, and self-gratifying. Humankind has struggled to find a conceptual system to operate their spiritual shortcomings. And you'll notice envy's number 2. So it means it's a pretty scary emotion. And we kind of talked about envy on the last page here, on the last page of your document. The envious person may deeply want what the other person has and feel frustrated in not being able to have it. The envious person can then act on the frustration and maybe then sometimes obviously attack the other person. An envious person may frequently, I love this, compare and despair, and find themselves wanting. Don't you think this is what happens on the internet and Facebook and social media and TikTok? We compare ourselves to others and then we feel this despair because we feel like we can't measure up. Because that's how envy works, and that's how dangerous the internet is. So they seek to bring down the object or person who they perceive as making them feel that way. If you think about, how we handle famous people who've fallen from grace, who've made a mistake, we vilify them. We poke fun of them, and sometimes we cancel them, right? And like we hold them to a higher standard when they're just people. Envious people can be competitive, and they can take pleasure in another's misfortune. And this is the kind of attack you see on social media. Celebrities' looks and behaviors criticized. The tiniest slip is magnified and vilified. So examples of acting on envy: putting down another student at school because you actually like what they're wearing, but you criticize them. Buying an item because influencers on social media promote them. Wanting to buy an expensive item one cannot afford because a neighbor has it. Copying what someone does, but trying to do it better. When someone famous makes a mistake, pointing out their flaws because it makes the person who pointed them out feel better to see someone successful suffer. I think that says a lot about the person, actually. Okay, so we're going to go to the prompt. And this one should be a lot easier. And you'll notice I didn't give you any example because it's that easy. Okay, so if you know, do you have the prompt? You'll notice it says a neighboring town cannot understand why the tower built in the Italian city receives so much of attention when they've built a similar tower in their city. Explain, and this is really the prompt that you're going to answer. And remember that if they give you a prompt, you make your claim based on that. Okay, so explain how the author made it clear what the theme of the story was, which was depicting envy as a destructive emotion. Okay, you'll notice that there's no you. It's not asking your opinion here. So this is how you know when the response should be in third person. It just wants you to explain without giving your opinion. So there's no I, me, and my in this one. So here's a couple of examples. The author, Pedro Pablo Sacristan, showed the neighboring townspeople to be so consumed by jealousy, they did not appreciate what they had. The author, Pedro Pablo Sacristan, presented interesting situations to show how the neighboring townspeople let the destructive emotion of envy cause them to lose sight of what was good about their own tower. The author, Pedro Pablo Sacristan, presented a sequence of destructive actions. This is my favorite. This is the one I'm going to prove. From the neighboring townspeople who were consumed with envy. And the sequence was 3. There were 3 actions. And it's really easy to pinpoint them. So you're going to make a claim. And you don't need to use my sentence. You answer the prompt, right? As you see fit. Back up the claim, giving 3 reasons to support the claim. So if you don't want to quote this time, summarize what happened in the story. Like, this was evident when this event happened in the story, and you could summarize the event. So you don't have to use quotes this time if you don't want to. For each of the 3 reasons, give proof from textual evidence, and then okay, so go to the back page. Remember, topic sentence must answer the essay prompt. So I kind of put the essay prompt back, on that page for you. Please don't copy my topic sentences. Please don't copy any of my sentences. It's just, and by the way, I didn't even give you an example this week, right? I just gave you bare bones. Okay, so I'm going to go back in the story and I'm going to show you a couple things here. Okay, so this is the first thing in the story. The very beginning of the story. A neighboring city built a tower of similar beauty. Well, why did they do that? They copied the original tower and built a similar tower. Okay, that was their first mistake, Fiumini. If you want to be well known, don't make your tower look exactly like someone else's, right? Create something unique. Every artist knows you don't copy the Mona Lisa, you make your own picture, right? That was their first mistake. And that kind of shows their evolution. You know, copying someone is not bad, right? Or getting ideas from other people. That's not bad. Okay. So then it went to another level here. Envious and filled with pride, they planned to destroy the neighboring city so it wouldn't take attention from their tower. So instead of making their tower prettier, they could have landscaped it. They could have put lights on it. They could have painted it. No, they're going to take down the other tower. Do you see how this is irrational thinking? Right? It's guided by this jealousy and envy. Okay, then we have at the very end of the story. Now, okay, they're not jealous of the tower. They're jealous of the attention the Leaning Tower is getting. Now, remember, I love this kind of picture here because the Leaning Tower of Pisa is actually a tourist attraction, isn't it? People come to that. So I do think this story is based on that. So we have three events in the story. We have, first of all, they copied the tower. Second of all, they sabotaged it, right? And caused it to lean. And then when the tower leaned, they tried to make their own lean. And then they destroyed their own. Okay, so this is really instrumental in your body paragraph. Number one, at the beginning of the story, the author showed how the neighboring townspeople were jealous. They were jealous of the Italian city because people remarked about their tower, right? And what do? They copy it, right? Why is that not good? Because it didn't show originality. It showed that they were, so jealous of someone else and the attention that they got, they didn't think it through. When the neighboring townspeople caused the tower to lean, it backfired on them. I mean, can you imagine? They go dig around it. They try to shake the foundation, which is exactly what happens if you dig around something. You have to be really careful where you plant shrubs and trees at your house because it can mess with your foundation. Yeah, this was sabotage. So obviously their envy, it's escalated. It's kind of gone from jealousy to a darker, more sinister emotion. Would you agree? Where you're attacking somebody. What if they had put all that energy into making their tower look better? Think about it. Paint and lights and landscape really do make a difference, don't they? I mean, seriously, they could have put all that time and energy into doing that, yet no, it was about taking someone down that they were jealous of. And this is where you understand. And then third, okay, this is just the craziest part, right? Jealous of the attention the lean now gets, they try to create their own lean. It's almost ridiculous, isn't it? The lengths that they went to because they envied them. But the message here is this pride and this jealousy. They lost their way. They were so intent on being favored, being more attractive to visitors than the Italian city. They lost it all, right? What do you think about the message of this simple story? It's a good one. Very relatable, don't you think? Okay, so here's what I want you to work on that most people are doing well with the claim. They're actually making good claims. They're doing really well with the 3 points and actually doing pretty good with the textual references. What they're not doing good is after you give what this was found in the story, this is where you make the logical conclusions. You inference. Why do you think the author did this in the story? And why this is hard, Fiumini, is it never said it in the story. You're supposed to interpret it based on everything that you've read, right? So this author had this theme about jealousy and envy for a reason. And he told this story because doesn't it mimic humanity? Isn't it exactly what human beings do? And it's not good. It makes us look really bad. It makes us look angry and hostile, and it makes us look insecure. And that's exactly what he's trying to show you. Be original, do your own thing. Don't look for others to lift you up. Look for yourself. And there's kind of hidden messages in there. And that takes maturity, and that just takes reading a lot. Okay. Does this one seem a little easier? One paragraph. Make it amazing. Should be at least half a page. Okay. All right, you're good to go. We'll add the rest next month. Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Bye, thanks.